Merry Christmas, gang. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Moded Studios embroidered patches and apparel. Go to modedstudios.com and check out the selection. Their hot seller this season is the Baby Yoda from the Mandalorian patch and beanie. Actually, the beanie's doing better than the patch. But shit, go out and get one of those. But if you don't like Yoda, then check out the Wu-Tang patches, the SpongeBob patches. Check out all the patches at modedstudios.com. They're always updating their website, and they do custom work. modedstudios.com, modedstudios.com. Go out and get yourself some. Now let's have a Merry Christmas and listen to this.
Brush. Brush.
Hey gang, welcome back to another episode of the We Speak English Good podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Ed McGee. Ed is a singer-songwriter, and he was formerly of Ekoostik Hookah, but is currently a part of Ekoostik Hookah 2.0. He has a new album out called The Life in Their Bones. I love the concept. It's just, he does a stripped down version of songs that he's written over the last 20-some years of his amazing career. He also has another album out. You can find those albums at Alexander's Trading Post, and you can find if you Google that, that'll come up. And if you go to his Facebook page, Ed McGee Music, there's a link there, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can just go directly there. He has it looks like he has a Christmas special going on, so I know it's Christmas now, but maybe it's still on sale, but he has all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, handwritten lyrics, and illustrations, and it's really cool. I dig what he's doing with his site there, so go check it out. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet so we can get into the conversation. So Merry Christmas. I just wanted to throw that out there. And also go to ReinaMystique.com, ReinaMystique.com, and check out our latest album, 1018. We had a real pleasure in making the album, and we know you'll have a real pleasure listening to it. Also, while you're there, go to the Experience tab and check out where Reina and I will be playing around the Toledo, Ohio area. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at We Speak English Good and at We Speak English Good on Facebook.com. I'm getting a little lazy on the tutorials. I know it's been a crazy time of year. Obviously, it's nuts for everybody, but we're going to get right back into it for 2020. So be on the lookout for that. Leave a review on iTunes. It helps. It helps. Any reviews on any platform helps. So you can leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast. Just leave a review. It's real easy. You can just click the stars, or if you're feeling ambitious, write a thing. Write something, and I'll read it on the show. You can also write the show directly at wespeakenglishgood@gmail.com. Let us know what you're thinking. How did you think this conversation with Ed McGee went? Did I make a complete ass of myself like I usually do? And the answer is yes, I do make an ass of myself. You'll have to find out. Listen, it's fucking awesome conversation. I'm just going to keep saying that. I think that's it. Let's just say that's it. Yeah, fuck it. It's it. So just a little warning before we jump into the episode. We did have some connection problems. I vow never to use Facebook Messenger as a form of communication. So right in the middle of the conversation, we switch over to the phone. I edited everything together, so it kind of goes through seamlessly, but it is very obvious. So enjoy this crystal clear conversation with a legend in the scene, Mr. Ed McGee.
Right on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good.
Excellent. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sending those CDs. I've been loving the music, and
Cool.
I actually I actually reached out to a friend, the first guy who ever actually introduced me to hookah, and I was asking him about some lyrics for because Alexander obviously is one of your I mean, you made 3 of them, so it must be one of your favorite songs, or at least a fan favorite for you to keep the story going for so long. And I was asking him, I was like, dude, all these years I've been listening to Alexander 2, and then now 3 is out, but or the third, and I'm like, what is he talking about here? Because I was like, I know there's some ghost, I know there's like a fire, but like, like I just never, and I'm sorry, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but like I'm just terrible at like absorbing lyrics. I'm more of a production kind of guy. I work in the production side of music, so like lyrics, they kind of fall deaf on my ears, but they do stick, and yours tend to stick. So I went and looked up the lyrics, and I'm like, I was chatting with them. I was like, did you know there's like this sexual assault on this young boy by ghosts? and he's like, oh yeah, I remember now. And so, because he forgot, he told me the story briefly, but then left out the sexual assault on the goat. And like this whole time, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what this was about. And I know that's not the whole story, obviously, but it's like sort of the end of the first song, and then you sort of get to. So I just wanted to open up with that, I guess, a little icebreaker.
Yeah.
I was a little Alexander, I mean, that's obviously one of your what are your feelings on Alexander, and how it's sort of morphed into several chapters? What are your feelings on the song and where it's gone?
Well, I guess it's something I don't know if pride is the right word. It's I have other songs that I kind of feel proud of, and I really feel like, all the kind of, like, some songs feel like they can be the culmination of all your work that you've done in the past to hone your craft or whatever. And sometimes it doesn't matter how much work you've done, and the stuff just doesn't come together when you have an idea. And other times it does, and it's a glorious thing when it does. But Alexander just, I don't know if it really falls into that category. It's become this huge thing, but it just really started with me just messing around with in one of my writing books. I was just working on some little technique that I just kind of come up with, which was, instead of having rhymes at the end of each line, which is the way it always is, having sort of rhymed words all throughout the line. And still have it try to make some sense. So I think I had originally written salamander starts to ponder, wander, and meander floor to floor, and I just thought it sounded cool, and it made no sense at all. But I changed it to Alexander, and suddenly I pictured this kid wandering floor to floor through some huge house, and that made me think of ghosts. And then the story just immediately started developing from there. And that first one was really not so much, Alexander 1's not so much a good story as maybe a chapter or 2 in a story. And I had been working on it for a while, and the drummer in my band at the time said, when are you going to finish Alexander? Because he'd already heard some of the music and wanted our band to play it. And I said, well, I don't know how the story ends. And he's like, well, every good story's got a sex scene. And, and I'd already kind of ripped off or borrowed a line from Stephen King's book, It. He thrusts his fists against the posts and still insists he sees the ghosts. And that book has a pretty startling kind of group sex scene in it. It's not in the movie, but it's in the book. And I was like, geez, Stephen King, you really like no depths,
Yeah.
And so I guess that was fresh on my mind. And so when my drummer said that, I said, all right, I'll try to write a sex scene, and that's how that weird scene ends up in the end. Yeah, that's definitely not under one of my proudest moments. It's a little creepy even singing it to me these days, but
Oh
I
wow.
do. I mean, I don't know. It's
No,
not
no,
like I.
that's interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, because just because you've continued the story for so long and for over, for you've had it stretched for so long, so it's interesting to me that you it's a little bit creepy for you to sing, even though it's like a fan favorite and people are probably singing along with you. you know.
Yeah, I don't. I wonder too if people have any idea what I'm actually saying, and so maybe it's best that they don't sometimes. But
Right. Well, that's what sucks. Well, not sucks, but it's what's weird about trying to like nail down an artist to have them explain their art. It's weird because it kind of matches up with kind of what I'm dealing with another thing I'm working on, which is it involves "I Am the Walrus" by the Beatles, which was a song that was sort of entail or they kind of wrote it to sort of thumb their nose at people who dig too deeply into lyrics and the meaning of art. And
mhm.
so that for whatever reason I just brought that up. But it just because I'm working on it right now, that's just ringing in my head. So to press you and to for you to explain yourself, it does. I almost do feel like it kind of takes away from the magic of people putting their own meaning on what you created, and but still, I mean, it does blatantly say that he's having this sex orgy with these ghosts, which I love. By the way, I love it. Like to after all these years to find that to be the ending that I never really put together. Like I think that's awesome. So thank you for
Well,
that.
technically, to be fair,
Sure.
the real ending is that in that sort of it's not even sex; it's more like a rape scene.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
he dies at the end of that,
That's what I
um,
thought.
and becomes a ghost himself to get revenge on all the kids that had been teasing him because they never saw any ghosts. Now he's going to be haunting them. And he's also sort of entered the ghost world so he can not be freaked out by the ghosts that were in his face. So it's kind of like in this backwards, dark way, a good thing for him at the end, or
Right.
he gets kind of dark revenge in some bizarro Stephen King esque way. Um, so yeah, so it's
Meanwhile, thousands of hippies are singing along with you, high as fuck on drugs, just loving every minute of it.
right.
I
And
love it.
and I just want to say that like I certainly don't want to say too much and ruin anyone's experience and or yours or when
Yeah.
you say it sometimes can be hazardous to have a song picked apart like this or hear from the songwriter. But I kind of fall somewhere in the middle on that because um, I kind of I studied a lot of poetry, and all my favorite songwriters are people who spent lots of time and effort on their lyrics, and I think there's plenty of songs out there that don't have much meaning, and you can sort of attribute whatever you want to it. But most of my favorites do have meaning, and I love being able to dive in and pick them apart and see the incredible marriage between the meaning of the lyrics and the feeling of the music. And if you don't know the meaning of the lyrics, you never get to that third, what I would consider sort of a third level, which is the marriage of the music feeling and the lyric meaning. And I feel sorry for people that kind of ignore lyrics because that's a sort of supreme place that I just think is a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
When you're really feeling the music and the feeling of the weight of the meaning of the lyrics at the same time, and seeing how the artist put them both together can be magical.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I was not trying to like denigrate any part of what you've written or done. I think it's great, and yeah, I think it is sad. I mean, because like when I think of myself, especially because like I said at the beginning here, that I work a lot in the production side of things. So music, like when I'm listening to a song with lyrics, and I've talked to a few people who kind of feel or hear it the same. Um, the lyrics and the melody of the voice just become a part of the whole, and
Mhm.
so I'm not focusing so much on the meaning of the lyrics rather than the feeling that I'm getting that the vocalist is projecting. So
Mhm.
it's So you do lose that, and you're right, and it does make it does make me feel like I should look a little bit more into it. I can't sing worth a shit either, so I think that has something to do with why I don't focus that much on it. But do you have any songs that you might have stopped playing because maybe it's changed meaning, or the meanings you don't appreciate the meaning anymore, or maybe it loses its meaning, or it changes? Do you ever lose like music, or lose a song, or take it out of your repertoire because maybe it's not that for you anymore?
That's an interesting question. I think that for the most part, I feel like when I'm singing a song that I wrote, it's kind of like I'm playing a part in a little play, or a scene in a play or something. I feel like a character all of a sudden, and I'm like adopting the voice of the character when I'm singing one of the songs. And um, a lot of my songs are fictional, so that's truly me playing, like, in my song "Another You," it's about this guy who's just so desperate to win the love of this woman, and she's just kind of a jerk to him. And then by the end of the song, he's found a real love, and he's got his own sort of weird, not revenge, but just he feels better because he can yet use her mean words back on her, because now he's happy. And so I really feel like the kind of spiteful but triumphant thing of that guy when I'm singing it. And his heart sickness in the beginning, I feel that too, even though it's completely fictional. And so even if it's a song that's not fictional, it's kind of the same thing. So if I disagree with what I wrote, like that Alexander one I wrote when I was 24 or something, and I'm 50 now.
Right.
So if there's any part of it that doesn't kind of sit well, or doesn't line up with who I am today, it's just like I'm playing that role of a younger me, I guess, or a younger person. And so there is one song, I guess, that I would be less likely to play because I kind of wrote it with some heavy, I guess, Catholic thoughts in it or something like that. And I'm agnostic now, so it's a little odd for me to sing, something where I'm clearly singing about faith and things like that. So I don't want to seem like a hypocrite. And it's not as easy to kind of feel like I'm playing a role, singing that song. So that's one that I probably wouldn't, feel as comfortable singing, or not comfortable, but just not lend, it wouldn't occur to me to play it, but for the most part, I think I just feel like I'm playing a role. And so I can just do that with any old song and not feel too bad about it.
I like that. I think that's a great point to point out, and it's something that my wife, she's a vocal teacher. It's something that sort of rings out to me, because my wife will explain this a lot to her students, is that when you are singing a song, whether it's yours or you're doing a cover, knowing what the song means, and then understand what it means to you, and then filling that role as that emotion, and putting that emotion and putting those inflections to create, to put off that meaning. So you're always sort of falling into a role. It's like many little acts, many little plays that you're doing. Each song is like this mini little play that you're doing, and you're doing this, you're acting it out and you're performing, but you're doing it through your voice or your performance. And so I think that's a great point, and a great thing to sort of point out to people who might be learning how to write, or learning how to find their even find their voice, is really putting yourself into a role and understanding what that emotion is, what these characters are doing, and trying to match that with your voice and yourself. Would you agree with that, Ed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an incredible freeing experience to, if you can't, I mean, it's a little weird to kind of let go and let yourself be absorbed to the point where you're becoming a different person, a different character. But if you can do it, I think it's really freeing, and it's an amazing experience. And just to, like you're in between songs and you're drinking a beer and laughing with somebody in the crowd or in your band or whatever. And then like 30 seconds later, you're just full, all in with some character who's going through something, whether it's happy or sad or angry or whatever. It's kind of fun to, like, I've always had a kind of, it's not a secret desire or anything, but it's not something that comes up, but I've always wanted to try acting. I just think it would be really fun because I feel like that's sort of what I'm doing in a way when I'm getting into these songs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, especially coming from your songs, because you are a storyteller. Like, you go out of your way to write stories to music, and hell yeah, I could definitely see you doing well with acting. In fact, I mean, to be able to channel all those stories every night that you're playing out there and to put them out there for people and put yourself in such a vulnerable state every day or every time you perform. I mean, that's right up acting's alley right there.
yeah, maybe someday I'll join the community theater.
Yeah, why not, man? Why not? I've been talking about doing improv because my wife actually started doing acting, and she's doing well with it. Actually, she just did a movie in like a real movie with the director that did the Black Panther. They're shooting in Mansfield. So she's doing well with it, is what I'm saying. I wasn't trying to brag about my wife, even though that's what it sounded like. I just bragged about my wife. Okay, we're moving on. But
That's awesome.
But no, but it was a natural step for her, and so I've been thinking about doing some stuff, but I just don't like the idea, like, because she tells me about some of the exercises they do, like where I don't know how much you know about acting or how many actors you know, but they do this thing where they stare into each other's eyes and with their mouth gaped open, just relaxed open, and they just stare into each other's eyes for like 10 minutes. And
Oh my God.
Doesn't that sound fucking terrifying? That sounds
weird.
Awful. That sounds fucking awful.
I hope I can skip that day.
Right, exactly. But no, this is like every day. Every day she shows up, it's like, okay, everybody, it's time to receive each other. It's called receiving. It's even called receiving. God damn it.
Wow. That's bizarre.
It is weird, but hey, we gotta try something new every once in a while, or else we just.
I think I just changed my mind. I don't think I want to act.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to piss on your parade there, man.
Yeah.
But let's back up a bit. Let's what's your lineage of music? Like, where do you come from within music? Does your family do you have a family full of musicians, or were you the lone wolf out there?
Yeah, it was a pretty creative family. Let's see, really both sides of my family, my mom's and my dad's, had a lot of music going on. My dad was from South Africa and grew up in a very strict Baptist community where they sang in church probably several times a week, but certainly on Sundays. And so that, singing in church. And but he also grew up right around a lot of Zulus. And so he learned how to speak Zulu and learned a lot of songs that the Zulu people would sing when they were, I don't know what they were doing, I guess, but he learned all these songs. So when I was growing up, when we'd be on car rides and stuff, road trips, instead of singing, I don't know what people were singing, the wheels of the bus go round and round or whatever. I don't know what Flintstones, but we were singing these Zulu songs, and I didn't even know what the words meant, but, we would just be singing along with that. And then my mom, her family also had a lot of music going on with it. One of my mom's sisters was a oboist and almost became a professional. She was a teacher of oboe and married a famous oboe player in symphonies, and her whole family sang and played piano and everything. So I think it was just kind of a constant thing growing up, and being the youngest of three siblings, or three kids. And by quite a bit, my sister's 7 years older than me, and my brother's 5 years older than me. I just grew up listening to my sister learning to play piano, and my brother was really into, rock and roll. So he always had the best stereo, and was always trying to get me to listen to this and that. And so I was sort of inundated with it, and happily. So that's kind of where it all started with me.
Oh yeah, man. The older siblings, you can't get a better education with music than that's if your older siblings isn't like a complete square or whatever, you know. but
Right.
most of the time, an older sibling will do you about right. I mean, because like I remember my sister was huge influence. It was like Dr. Dre, fucking Motley Crue, a Pink Floyd, you know, all these like amazing bands that she was influencing on me. It's like, yeah, man, the older siblings are so super important. So then what was the first instrument you so you were singing at church, and you mentioned Catholicism. So you were involved in the Catholic Church too, or just
it was my parents were more into church. It's not there. That's scary. Sorry, I'm talking to my wife for 1 second.
Totally cool.
You found it? Dude, you just scared the shit out of me. Thank you. I just realized I didn't have my wedding ring on, and I took a shower a while ago, and she was just going to the bathroom like, can you check for my ring? She's like, it's not there, but it was. She was just messing with me.
Oh.
So anyway, I went to church a little bit, and then luckily my hockey life took over. I was playing in a travel team that played away games on Saturdays and Sundays, and my parents were like, you're going to have to make a choice whether to continue with Sunday school and church or playing hockey. And I'm like, let me think about it. And so that was a glorious moment. Yeah. So
you abandoned religion rather early in life.
Well, I didn't. I mean, like I said, I had some sense of faith until I was in my, I guess, late 20s or so.
Okay.
So there is some some references to it in some of my songs. One song in particular that I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, so not that wasn't a huge thing in my life, really. Or it certainly isn't now.
Right. So you were singing in church. So when did you start playing instruments, and what was your first instrument?
Again, I wasn't singing in church.
I'm so sorry. You just said that. My God, I'm so sorry.
My parents did. Yeah.
Right. You're right. I'm so sorry about that. But when did you start discovering your voice and start picking up instruments?
Well, I wanted to. I think from a pretty I guess I was going to say young age, but nowadays people start super young. So I guess in around 6th grade was when I really became interested in music, and the concept of being in a band occurred to me. I had kind of gone through my parents' record collection, and they didn't really have much I was interested in. And I wasn't really allowed to go through my brothers, but I went through, my parents, and the only things that they had in there that I was interested in was they had the Best of the Beach Boys album on vinyl, and so I kind of stole that and brought it into my room, and quickly fell in love with it. And it was like a picture of the Beach Boys hanging out together on the beach on one side of it or something, and I was like, man, being in a band looks like it's so much fun, and so at that time, I was singing along with the Beach Boys, and that may have helped me learning about harmony and melody and stuff. But I hated singing. I just did it because I wanted, I was trying to get into the band and get into the music. And I also wanted to learn to play guitar around then. And I played air guitar on my lacrosse stick for quite a while. And I even went to the extent where if I heard the guitar notes were getting higher, I would move my hand up the lacrosse stick. I thought at the very least I could start getting used to that concept, that the higher up the neck, the higher the notes, and see if I could strum in time. But it was, and my mom played guitar, so she taught me my first chords probably around then, and I started learning how to strum on her like folk guitar. So that's kind of how it started. I think my brother had some interest in it as well and borrowed an electric guitar from someone, so he let me mess around with that. And then eventually, maybe by 8th grade or so, maybe 9th grade, I got my own acoustic steel string guitar and an electric guitar eventually. And I think I borrowed an amp from my sister's boyfriend at the time, and that's how that all started.
Right on. So when did you start doing the band thing then? And did you and since you hated singing, did you step into the role as the lead singer just
Oh yeah,
because of
well,
necessity?
what happened with that was all through high school, I was fascinated with, I was obsessed with guitar, playing guitar, and also lyrics and writing. I mean, I'd been writing little poems and lyrics and things since I was in 3rd grade. So I guess I realized at some point in high school that in the Who, Pete Townsend was writing the songs and the lyrics, and Roger Daltrey would sing them, and he would just sing harmony once in a while and occasionally take lead on a song. And so I thought maybe that would be my model. That's what I could do. I could be like the Pete Townsend of a band, write the music and lyrics and just have someone else sing them. And then I went to college, went to Ohio State and got into the Grateful Dead. And I just happened to I'd just gotten into them and I was learning some of their songs. And as usual, I hated singing and I was trying to sing like some Jerry song. And some of the songs I learned by Jerry at the time were kind of like those crooner kind of songs where you really have to hold a note for a while, like all the years combined, and you're just like having to milk these moments. Whereas then all of a sudden I learned a couple Bob songs and it was much more like, patience runs out on the junkie, just like a quick burst of, or escaping through the lily fields. I came across an empty space. It's almost like just rapping or this Dylan-esque kind of short bursts of breath. And I loved it. And it kind of made me want to sing those songs. So I was like learning them when I was in college and playing in open mics and stuff. And part of me still, I had been working on these songs I'd written. Like I think I'd written Lady Vanilla and Through Hiker by then, and I was still waiting to find my Roger Daltrey, my Prince. Um, and having not found one yet, I was singing them myself and not enjoying it at all. But then I started singing these Bob Weir songs, and for the first time, I found that I enjoyed singing and thought I actually could sing. And certainly when I was like covering a Bob Weir Dead song, I would be mimicking him. But I found that when I started writing my own songs, I don't think I was mimicking him anymore. It was more just like I was borrowing some parts of his style or something. And then the confidence that I got from that allowed me to move forward as being an actual singer.
Yeah, that's awesome. That I find that a lot with people who are like who aren't, especially like guitarists who are or something, who were like, well, I didn't really like playing guitar. I like playing bass, but then like they just excelled at it because they started learning these songs and they started seeing that they could do it. And as soon as you start seeing that you can accomplish it, you start taking it on and being like, wait, I could really do this. And that's where you kind of start finding your own voice. That's when you start searching, I guess. And when did you find, I mean, because like you have a very unique voice and you have that vibrato that people love. And when did that all start kind of showing itself to you?
Well, it's funny. I have kind of mixed feelings about the vibrato thing because I'm pretty sure the vibrato came around in my late 20s as a result of my hearing loss.
Oh,
Yeah. Is that my
no,
computer
that's
doing?
me. It's my no,
Oh, okay.
it's my computer buzzing back here. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I was gonna
Muting.
see if I could mute it if it was me. Yeah, I don't really. It's kind of become a weird crutch that is hard for me to let go of.
Wow,
I
I'm sorry.
damaged my. What's that?
No, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Just keep going.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's just it's the result of just being a young punk who didn't protect his ears. Everyone was saying you use protect, like earplugs or in-ear. I don't know if they even had decent in-ear monitors in the mid '90s, but I didn't, I was playing with Local Color in at the South Heidelberg every Monday for 2 years. And, basement bar, roofs right above your hair, and just loud. And the drummer, same one that convinced me to put a sex scene in Alexander, his crash cymbal was right by my right ear. And so just like all night long, every Monday for 2 years, it got to the point when I was about 24, 25, where I couldn't talk on the phone in my right ear anymore. And I had to switch to my left ear, which I remember it felt weird at the time because I'm right-handed. And I just got used to it after a while. And then, I joined Hookah a couple of years later, and Sweeney always said he had kind of hearing loss of some sort. I don't know if he ever got it measured, but so his amp was pretty loud on stage. And the problem with being in a band, as you may or may not know, is everyone kind of turns up so they can hear themselves to whatever the loudest thing is. And then maybe that person turns up more, and it's just a vicious cycle. So Hookah was always a pretty loud band. And I think my hearing diminished as the years went by. And what I find is that when I'm in a noisy situation, and I'm singing on stage, it's hard to hear what note I'm singing unless that vibrato is there. It's almost like the note disappears, and I just don't even know. Have you ever gotten into your car and start the car and the radio's on but turned kind of low, and you hear a song and you recognize it, but then you turn it up and suddenly hear that it's in a totally different key than your brain was registering it in? Does that ever?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
Well,
it's a different song completely.
yeah. Well,
That's what I get more.
So with me, that's what it's like sometimes. I think that I'm singing a certain note, and then maybe it gets quiet for a second. I suddenly realize I'm like a whole step off, and it's just a terrifying. It kills your confidence real quick. And so I think I discovered that I probably wasn't using much vibrato in the early days, but when I started to, I suddenly realized I could hear the note better. Maybe it's because the definition of vibrato is like the note is moving around quickly between pitch and flat and sharp, and so it gives you a wider spread that maybe, I don't know, maybe some part of your brain or your actual eardrum is picking up. So I just found it easier to hear the note, and it became a crutch. I didn't even realize it was happening at the time until I think we were playing some song Eric was singing, and he asked me to sing this background part. He was like, "Can you sing it without vibrato?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that." And I tried, and it was really hard for me to even do that. I mean, it's like I almost couldn't make myself stop.
Wow.
And that was when I realized I kind of had a problem. And I feel like on some early recordings, you can hear that I don't sing like that. And then as hearing got worse, suddenly it's there all the time. And sometimes when I'm in the studio where you can hear really well, I feel like it doesn't have as much vibrato as when I'm on a noisy stage and you hear a recording of that. So I didn't. Yeah, so I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I hope it doesn't bother people too much, because I don't know what to do about it. So.
Well, no. I mean, like, for me, that was one of the things that sort of defined your voice. And no offense, I didn't realize that it was such a crutch. That's why I was so blown away when you said that it was a crutch, because I mean, like, it makes to me, that's one of the things that defines your unique voice is the vibrato. And so I'm realizing that it was something out of necessity that you just sort of, your system must have just started doing automatically just to sort of make up for your hearing loss. And
yeah, like a psychological thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. There's times when I hear recordings of myself when I'm like, whoa, that's way too much vibrato. And other times where I'm like, it just kind of, it'll sneak in at the end of a phrase, and then I'm like, oh, that sounds nice, and certainly in the studio when I'm scrutinizing everything I sing, I can listen back and go, that one was a little too much, or this one's not enough, or whatever. But yeah, I don't mind it. It's just, but it's kind of like a tool that needs to be used correctly. You don't want you overdo it, I guess, and I probably lean toward overdoing it just by mistake. So yeah, but I'm glad to hear that you think some people may like it.
Well, I know it's more than just me. I mean, like I've had full on discussions with friends like about it, you know.
Mhm.
So when did you start? Because I know your writing style is so unique because you have this sort of like it's progressive, and you have a lot of changes. Not every song is like that, obviously, but like you tend to have changes, and you know you're going on an adventure when you listen to an Ed McGee song, and so. You know, like Alexander, for example, is one of those songs that takes you on an adventure. But I'm just curious, when did you start sort of seeing and hearing music that way in pieces? And you know what I mean? Because like, oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I think that uh, I think that probably started in high school. I loved Rush. I was a huge fan of Rush, and you could say this about Rush or Yes, a lot of those kind of prog rock, I guess they call it. You know, certainly Rush had lots of songs from their, I guess, first 11 albums. I think after the 12th or 13th, they started writing songs that were a little bit more stripped down, not quite so adventurous or whatever. I mean, they were still adventurous in their own way, whatever. But you know, the first few albums just had these long, you know, Xanadu crazy multi-part songs with movements, you know, that they went through, and I loved that, and I thought it was just um, fascinating. You know, I loved U2 and the Police and REM and the Beatles and stuff, but to hear a song that, you know, is 2 or 3 times as long that goes through multiple parts was really neat, and just like a different frontier to explore sonically and musically. And I so I think by the time I, you know, 4 or 5 years, 6 years later, when I started writing my own songs, there were some songs I was writing that were just little shorter, poppier songs that might have been influenced by, you know, Sting and U2 or REM or whoever. But then I also was interested in seeing if I could try to do some of those more involved ones, and I was getting into the Grateful Dead and Fish around then, who both, of course, have similar long segmented pieces, and at the same time, I was getting these weird ideas for lyrics, you know, and we keep mentioning Alexander, but there were plenty of other ones too, you know, that had uh, stories going on with different parts to them that, to me, seem to require different music. That, you know, it's, you have one verse that's this kind of a mode and atmosphere, and then a chorus, or maybe it's not even as simple as that. Maybe they're just chunks of stanzas of lines that hard to identify what the chorus or the verse is, but this part needs different music than that part, certainly, and it's got 8 lines to it instead of 4, you know. So I think it was just out of part of the creative process of just making it all work, and having fun with that kind of experimentation, that it all happened like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's endless songs. Well, not endless, but you know what I mean. You got lots of songs to choose from that have great epic parts to them and stuff. So what were you studying in college? Now that we're here at college, what did you go to OSU for?
Well, I mean, what did I go for? I went to drink beer and join a band, but I mean, I honestly didn't want to go to college, but I didn't want to not go because my parents were both college professors, and I don't think it would have sat with them very well if I didn't go. I was really sick of school somewhere in the middle of high school. I was just like, I can't wait till I do not have to go to school anymore. But I decided it would be a good idea because I knew that I wanted to try to join a band, and maybe it would be good to have a degree to fall back on if things didn't work out. So it seemed like a good idea, and I'm so grateful that I went. I always tell people, even if you are not sure, I think it's a good idea for many reasons. I think I could, you know, list a million reasons, but just the social aspect and being out on your own and having to. I always say it's like not even about what you majored in. It's about like if you manage to set your alarm that many times that you passed all your classes and got a degree, that's a discipline that a lot of people that didn't go to college might not have, so that's a good thing. But to get back to the real question, I majored in psych, mainly because it was offered at 2 p.m. and I hate waking up. Um, and I minored in English with a focus on poetry because I just like poetry. I like lyrics and lines of writing, and so it wasn't like some big grand plan. It was just literally psychology was interesting to me, and I'd already taken a few poetry classes to satisfy some basic requirements, and then my last quarter at OSU was kind of just like I had finished all the requirements, and even for electives, I had nothing left to do for my major or anything, and I was like, "Can I just be done? I've satisfied everything." And they're like, "Well, you need 186 credits to graduate, and you only have 170." And so I just signed up for like 3 more poetry classes and whitewater rafting, and that's how I ended up with a minor in poetry. But I'm really grateful that I did do that, because one of my professors that final quarter was life-changing in my writing. And
In which way?
he taught me how to trust myself to do better work than I was doing. I think a lot of people, and definitely me, when they're writing and they're maybe not bad at it, or they feel like they have a kind of flow with it, just kind of think that everything that comes out of their pen onto the paper is immediately done and perfect, and he taught me how to trust that I could do better, and taught me methods of how to be better, and how to notice things, and how to write in a style that was, I think, well, I'm not saying I succeeded in learning this, but he at least tried to teach me how to write in a style that was more captivating and engaging than what I'd already been doing.
That's important, man. Those teachers that stick out in your head, man. It's like there's so much wrong with the education system, but there are still people who really care and who really do influence people and like really change lives. It's like I like that idea of like just going to school just to sort of discover who you are. It's a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
It's go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, yeah, Gordon Grigsby was his name. He passed away a few years ago, but he was amazing. He was like this kind of gruff, stern, bearded dude who lived north of Columbus in the woods somewhere, and was this incredible poet himself. And he didn't take any shit from anybody. Like, these students, including me, just thought they were, God's gift to writing. And he would just pick, every week we'd have to write a new poem and read them anonymously in front of the group. And you'd be hearing your classmates analyzing your poem right in front of you, and they didn't know who wrote it, and it can be kind of a disturbing experience. And he would just kind of be like, "What's wrong with this poem?" And somebody would it's really cliche. And he's like, "Exactly. What's with the rainbow rain thing again? Do we really need to use this?" And he just had no shame, and people, would get mad at him, but I loved it. I was like, this feels like wonderful to just like cut away all the tenderness, and it can mean whatever you want it to mean, and just get to the analysis of what's really working. And I got to tell you one more thing that Grigsby said. This was mind blowing to me. He used to make us write these worksheets, fill out these worksheets when we'd hand in a poem that would ask all these crazy details, like who's the speaker of the poem, how old are they, what are they wearing, what time of day is it, what day of the week is it, what month is it, what's the weather like, where is this taking place, what's the address. Just ridiculous amount of details that you felt like didn't even need to be, they weren't part of your poem. And you're like, why am I answering all this stuff? And, his argument was that if you go through this process, it creates a very real world in your mind, whether it's a real place or not that you're writing about. It's filling up this world in your mind that allows you to make a clearer, more honest, and relatable poem. And I was like, yeah, I sort of get that, but this seems ridiculous. So anyway, I'm meeting him for a conference about my poem this one time. And it's this poem I had written about an experience I had where I was hanging out with an artist painter friend of mine at her house in Vermont when I was in college. And part of the worksheet says, what's the address? So I wrote down the address, which was, now I'm forgetting the key part of this freaking story. Something about pines, Hawk Pine Hill Road. And so I'm sitting there with Gordon Grigsby, and he says, he's reading the poem. He's like, not bad, but we got some problems you got to work out. And then he pauses and he's looking at my worksheet and he goes, Hawk Pine Hill Road. And I go, yeah. And he goes, why is that not in the poem? And I just sat there dumbfounded as like the meaning, as it sort of sunk in, like this was like a gift, like Hawk Pine Hill Road. It's just a beautiful sounding name and a road. And it's a real place right down the street from where I grew up that, when you're growing up, you just take for granted. It's just the name of a road. You don't think of Hawk Pine Hill, it's like three perfectly beautiful descriptive words that paint a picture. If you tell someone I drove up Hawk Pine Hill Road, they suddenly can see a place, and so that was a real kind of breakthrough moment for me, just realizing that there's little details that you need to kind of be aware of to help people visualize. And I think when someone's hearing a song lyric or certainly reading a poem, the words that paint pictures immediately are the ones that make something real and you can dive into and be a part of it. So that was a huge Grigsby moment for me.
That literally is like that's literally explaining your whole fucking your whole body of work is like in that moment where he teaches you to like pick those details, because it is those details, those nuances that I appreciate. You know what I mean? So that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that it's the not my whole body; it's the post Grigsby body of work.
Thank you.
My post Grigsby and pre Grigsby have very big differences in them.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that. So then, when did hookah come into play then?
I was really big fan of the Dead, and I was going to see Local Color every Monday at the Southburg years before I joined the band. And Dave Katz was, an original member of that band. Then my neighbor, when I was like a sophomore in college, I think he was roommates with Steve and Cliff. And he invited me to come see Supplication, another Dead cover band that Steve and Cliff were playing in. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. And of course was instantly blown away by Steve and Cliff playing up there together. So I started watching them all the time. And then they invited me to play in between sets at one of their shows at Ruby Tuesdays or something. And I'd, only written a few songs, but I knew a couple Dead songs that they didn't play. And so I'd get up there and play about 5 songs, and then they'd come back for their second set. So, I got to know Steve and Cliff during those years. And then eventually, I guess Dave left Local Color and met Mullins and started up Hookah and got Steve and Cliff. And so I already knew, half the band at that point. So I just met Mullins eventually and Steve Fry and Sophrenic. And then because of, I guess, Cliff and Steve being in the band, I somehow, I knew them, and I got to know Dan Mesnard, who was doing sound. He was actually playing in between sets of Hookah in the beginning, and I was like really hoping to get to do that again, because it was my first sort of like experiences with playing in front of crowds, and I was loving it. I was eating it up. So I just got to be friends. It was very opportunistic of me. I got to be friends with Dan Mesnard, and eventually he invited me to play along with him. And then eventually, I think he just didn't feel like doing it anymore, so he just let me do it. And then eventually, when they needed a new guy, by then they were familiar with me and my songs because I'd been playing them at their shows. So that's kind of how that all happened.
Okay. And then so when you came into the band, were you did you come in with the understand like no I'm trying to phrase this so it doesn't sound like an asshole, but like were you hired in the band as a songwriter, or were you just someone that they just wanted to sort of sing the songs and then you just became that, you sort of stepped into a role of songwriter? How did you start introducing songs, or did they want you to introduce songs? How did that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. They wanted a songwriter, a singer songwriter, a rhythm guitarist, and they knew that I wrote songs and had a bunch. I mean, at the time I'd been playing a bunch of them with Local Color. Like I'd already been playing Alexander One and Crinklevine and T Rose and Surround and Float. There might have been more. But those are 5 I can think of right off the top of my head that I was already playing with Local Color, and the fans seemed to like in that band. So they, I think I was just kind of the easiest, the low hanging fruit for them at the time. They knew me. I was right there. I was already writing songs, and they didn't want to play any of Mullen's songs anymore. I was kind of bummed in a way because I was a huge fan of Mullins and a lot of his songs. So when I got asked to audition, I was even saying, can we play this song or that song by Mullins? They were like, no, we're not doing any of the songs. I was like,
was there,
okay, because I knew how to play some of them, but they're like, no, we're not doing them.
Was there a reason? Did they give you a reason, or is that important? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Well, it's nothing more exciting than you'd expect. I mean, and I don't even remember clearly. I'm sure it was nothing more than just, they went through some tough times with John, and he wasn't going through a good period himself, and from what I heard, it had gotten beyond simple creative differences. I don't even think there were creative differences. It was more just like personality, getting violent with them, I heard, and he was, he was kind of a mess, I guess, at that point. And so, so I think they just needed to move on, and to move on required not singing his songs because that would be attaching themselves to them or something. I guess I don't know anything more than just that.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have to have Dave or something. It was not my decision. Right. I was like, well, can we at least play Freedom Flying? And because there was a couple songs in particular I loved kind of playing on my guitar, and I thought I could sing, do a decent job with. But it's probably for the best that we didn't. But yeah, so when I got hired on, they asked me to give them a list of songs that I thought they should learn to start playing. And so I made a list of about, 15 of my songs or something. And I think I made a recording of whatever crappy, bootleggy kind of recordings I had of myself playing them, or maybe some of them were with Local Color. I don't know. And then from that list, they picked 6 that they wanted to learn right out of the gates. And I remember it kind of sucked. It was fun because they came over to my apartment and we did songs on a couple different days. And I had to teach them the 6 songs, which kind of pissed me off. 35 of their songs in 2 days on my own, no anything. And so I was kind of giving them shit about that, but it was still kind of fun to hang out and learn my songs with. It was obviously kind of mind blowing to be playing songs that I'd been playing around with, where I was the guitarist of it, and then suddenly Sweeney's showing me how to do it, and I was like, oh my god, that was very exciting for me. I'm half kidding when I told what I just said, but yeah. So they learned 6 of my songs. I can't even remember them because we had playing the same 6 songs
every night for I don't know if it's 6 months. It might have been like 4 months, but I think it was quite a while before we got together and learned anything new and of mine. And then even after that, like we learned like 2 or 3 more maybe. And then I had 9 songs from which to kind of choose 6 every night, and so it would still be some of the same songs, and I got tired of those 6 songs awful quick.
What now? Did that cause any point of contention for you in the band, or was this something that you sort of like was like, well, I'm new, I'm just sort of taking my licks, and I'll get them in when I can, or did you have to rally and be like, hey, what's up?
No, it was fine. It's just the way it was. It was just the logistics. We were playing so often that there was no downtime to, or it felt like there was no downtime to learn new stuff. And I was pretty exhausted myself, and it was hard for me to blame them, but any chance we did get, I was like, come on, let's learn another song. And there was also an issue of, I wasn't aware yet of the fact that Sweeney kind of hates every song until he likes it. And so I just thought, because I over the years as a fan, I'd heard him complaining about certain songs of Dave's or John's that he didn't like. So when I joined, I was trying to be all, no pressure, Steve. If you don't like one of my songs, we don't have to play it. I've got plenty of songs. We'll just, keep going through the list till we find one that you're happy with. And then I finally realized he doesn't like anything, and until he plays it for a while, and then suddenly he's like, "Let's play that song. I like that song," And so God love him.
Does Sweeney strikes me as like a metal guy. Was he a metal guy, or is he a metal guy?
I don't think so. I think he. He liked Yes a lot. That's probably as metal as he get. He liked Yes, and I don't know if he was into any kind of metal.
Well, I guess. Well, by the way, Fragile is like one of my favorite albums ever. But
it's incredible. Yeah.
So, but yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked because it's Sweeney. But anyways, so you guys were playing the songs, and now how did the audience, because at this time Mullins was in the band and you took over, the Hookah had a name already when you stepped into the band. So I was curious, how did the crowd receive it? I mean, I know what happened eventually, but like when the change came over, what was the reception like for you? What did you glean off of it?
It was for the most part it was very positive. When I try to like look at the whole picture, I think the 90% of it was positivity and people just accepting that whatever happened. But there was a good chunk of people that were really not happy I was there. I always refer to it as the kind of Sammy Hagar. I was the Sammy Hagar of the band, and by the way, I have mad respect for Sammy Hagar for having gone through kind of what I went through, but on a huge scale.
Right,
like I have no business complaining when you think about what he went through. He's just a nice guy that got asked to play a position, and then so anyway, it's that same kind of thing for me. Like I didn't fire John. I didn't make him screw up that whole situation. I was just the one they hired, and yet it's easy to kind of just like use me as a scapegoat or throw the blame on me. And there were times when people would even yell shit from the crowd, and Dave would have to say something, from his seat at the keyboards, like, if you have a problem with what happened, talk to me or anybody else in the band. Ed wasn't the one that did it, which was nice of him to do, but I kind of felt bad that he even had to. It was like, it was sad to watch a band that I love just going through this whole thing. Even, like I felt really weird just taking that role. I was a huge Mullins fan. We were friends. We lived together for a while. And it was weird to me as a fan to like, I don't want you to not be in this band. I certainly don't want to be in your position. Obviously I have my own aspirations as a musician. So this is an opportunity I can't pass up, but this is awkward. This is weird. So people that I think saw the big picture and understood that shit happens, were gracious enough to give me a chance and liked some of my songs, and then things, over time, it became more natural, and after a few years it felt completely fine. But yeah, I mean, there were some tough parts of that. I'd never had that before. I mean, when I was in Local Color, we were all happy and everyone's happy. The fans that came to us were friendly and loved us and loved my songs. And I'd, be at Fish shows or Dead shows, and people would recognize me as the guy that plays in Local Color. And it was always a positive experience. And then suddenly I'm this Sammy Hagar type guy where people come up to me and I don't know if they want to shake my hand or tell me to fuck off or what, because I just don't know, like they would just be mad at me just because I was that guy. And that was kind of sucky,
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's like if you married into somebody who had stepkids, you're trying to win over the stepkids, and
right
on some weird level. But that kind of a bad analogy. Never mind. Let's just move on.
No, it's all right.
But,
the one thing. Can I say one more?
Oh,
thing
of course.
that?
Please say whatever you want.
The thing that one of the biggest things that bothered me about it was, I feel like by becoming a Sammy Hagar type position character in a band, I lost my ability to hear feedback in a sort of untainted way. Like when I was in Local Color, or just anything else, any other bands I was in, or just any time I played at an open mic or whatever, and somebody liked a song or didn't like a song, that was just a truthful, honest kind of, that was their reaction. But once I was the guy that replaced Mullins, some of these reactions aren't truthful anymore. They're not like, they don't have to do with me or my music or my songs. They have to do with me not being John Mullins. It has to do with people being angry that I'm in some role that they wish somebody else was in. So it's like, it's hard to know if they think that song sucks or I suck, and therefore I can internalize that and figure out what I might be doing right or wrong as a musician. Or even if I'm doing something right, are they just being nice to me because I'm the new guy? It's nothing made sense in a real way anymore. Like the feedback just went away. I couldn't judge. I couldn't figure out if it was a real, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you know what I'm saying? I couldn't.
Yeah, of course. Cause I mean, you're in this weird position where it's like you almost can't even trust what you're hearing, because you don't know where people are coming from at this point, especially you're in a band with a following, and there's people, I get what you're saying. I get that it was hard to gauge where you were at. I've never been in that position, that a position like that, but I could definitely hear what you're saying, and that seems like a difficult place to be in. But
yeah, when I was in Local Color, nobody compared my songs to anybody. They were just like, Alexander's a cool song, like, where the hell did you get that idea? Or like, Surround, what is Surround about? And or they might say, oh, this song sounds a little fishy right here, or that song reminds me of the Wharf Rat or something. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm totally influenced by the Dead, and I love Wharf Rat, so maybe I accidentally still, stuff like that, which just makes sense, and I could totally understand and learn from. But if you're just constantly compared to John Mullins, then it's not really helpful. Right. It doesn't do me any good. Yeah, you're right. I'm not John Mullins. You're right. My voice doesn't sound like his. You're right. I don't write songs like that, and that, how does that help me? I'm just Ed over here doing what I've always done. And instead of saying that song is too quirky or that song's awesome in this part, it's just like, you suck because you're not Mullins, or, oh, the new guys, yeah, it's a nice song, Eddie. Like it's not real anymore. Like I missed the feedback that I used to get.
Yeah. So then, so you said a couple years into it, well, obviously a couple years into it, you and your songs and the band sort of took on a different, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm seeing it from an outsider, and from my point of view, when I came to you guys, I came to Hookah when you were in the band, maybe like 2000. So like you had already been in the band, what, a couple years by then?
Yeah, almost 4, I guess.
4 years. Okay, so you joined in '96. And
Yeah.
then so when I saw you, it was already, the Ed show, which no offense in any way, I just said you're the guy, it's like by the way, random question out of nowhere. Did you ever use reverse delay on your in your effects chain on your vocals?
Reverse delay on my vocals?
Yes.
I would have no idea that was even happening. That would be the sound man probably.
Oh.
In a live show?
Yes, it was a live show.
Yeah, I mean, around that time, I think we had Bill Horsky doing sound, who was fond of using a lot of effects.
So it is a possibility that at one point you might have had reverse delay on you, and it wasn't the first time I saw you guys. That wasn't the time I'm talking about. It was definitely a Hookah. I think it was the Hookahville Bela Fleck was playing, but I was just for years I've been trying to figure out. I was like, did I really hear that, or was I just really high on drugs? And so now, now it actually gives me some kind of comfort to know that it is a possibility that I wasn't just fucked up, that that I did hear what I hear. Maybe it's still a mystery.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a random
question.
Likely. It's like, okay, well, good. Thank you, Ed. Thank you for clearing up that 20-year mystery, or 15-year, whatever. Okay, so you guys. So when did you notice that? Okay, so what I was getting at was that I saw, with the way I saw it and the way that my friends tell me who've been into hookah since the beginning is sort of you joined the band, and then the band sort of took another step. Like they grew, and a lot of people attribute it to your songs. And I'm not trying to say that you alone has brought hookah to where they were. But is that a statement that you could agree with, that after you joined, that things got a little bit bigger or a lot bit bigger?
Well, I would love to say that my songs and my sort of persona and my energy helped the band go to another step. And I'm saying it right now. I'm kidding. But to be fair, the band was, when I joined that band, it was already a snowball rolling down the hill, picking up steam. They had a lot going for them. And I, to the point where I used to say that, it felt like just being a water skier behind a really powerful boat trying to join that band or play a song with Steve Sweeney on stage. Just hanging on for dear life. They were motoring right along, and I certainly think they did me more favors than I did them when we joined. But I would like to think that I helped in my own way. But I think they probably would have done well with any decent singer songwriter, I would think.
That's a humble way of saying it. Yeah, that's nice. That's like, I mean,
also
like,
a powerful band,
of course, and like that's the thing. Like, you can't take away from anything that they had when they started, and then obviously when you were in the band, and then even now, like you can't take away anything that they've accomplished. But you could definitely add to, I think, and and I'm just saying it in a perspective that comes from my stupid small group of friends who are all into it. Fucking, we're just like, yeah, Ed, man, it was all about Ed. I'm just that was the fan side of.
I need to hang out with you guys. I need to.
You know what? You might remember some of them. They called themselves this was a small faction of. I was actually not even part. They called themselves well, never mind. I can't remember. Fuck. I was gonna say the Schwa family, but that's not it at all. That's Hookah's side. No, what did they call themselves? God damn it. Never mind. It doesn't matter. There was like a group of them, and they always were following Hookah around. It was just a group of stinky hippies from fucking Toledo. So whatever.
The Scribblers.
Oh, wait a second. No, it started with an S though. It was like it was almost like it was like a descriptive word to describe someone who's always fucked up, and it started with an S, and I can't remember the fucking shit. Anyways, I think Lisa Phillips, I don't know if you know or remember her.
Yeah.
Lisa
Yeah,
Phillips was a part of that thing. And so
Okay,
that
cool.
was sort
Yeah.
of the clan, sort
So I
of.
guess I have hung out with those people.
Yes,
So.
yes. Yeah. So that was sort of the clan that I was a part of for,
Cool.
like that sort of went and we all just ganged up and,
Good clan.
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, fucking good times, man. It was a great time. Really important part of my life. Especially those early 2000s, those shows. And I remember we went to the Agora and, it was a New Year's show at the Agora. Fucking who knows what year it was, but it was a crazy snowstorm, and my friend was so fucked up that he was ripping the fucking seats out of the floor. It was out of control. That's what I was trying to say. Like the whole thing was out of control. And I remember the first time I ever went to, because Hookah was the first time I ever went and saw a show like that. You know what I mean? Like until that, like my first show was Tex Beneke, which is the saxophone player for the Glenn Miller Orchestra. So that was my first concert. And then so like, I went to concerts and stuff, but I never been to something like that where it's like, I mean, it was almost like ceremonial, you know what I mean? Like you go and my friend was like, here, eat this. And then let's check this out. And I was just, and I remember hearing the band being like, this is fucking garbage. Like, no offense. I'm sorry. Like I sometimes am too honest and bury myself in a shallow grave. But
You might have been right.
But no, well, what I heard, and like coming from a guy who was just like, so I can only listen to fucking like Weather Report or Miles Davis. That's all I can listen to, because when you're a young kid, you think you know like what the coolest music ever is, and that's what was the coolest music. Fusion, bro. That was. Fusion. So when someone was like, "Hey, check this out," I'm like, "What the fuck is this? What the fuck?" Okay, so there was a before. I think what was it? It was something in Southern Ohio. It was some fall festival, in Hocking Hills, and it was just incredible. It was like one of those moments where like I think the fog was rolling in, and like fucking there was just it was just an incredible moment, and it all made sense. And I'm sure you've heard this a lot, so or at least a version of this a lot. So, but it was that moment where I'm just like, oh, okay, I get it now. Okay, now it's you sort of leave those preconceived notions behind and you move forward. With the band, so while you're in the band, you guys are growing the scene. Like, what are like the bigger lessons you learned from your time with Hookah? What are the bigger things that you took away from it? And I know that's kind of a hard question, but like, what are some of the bigger things that you can glean from being in a band like Hookah?
Wow, yeah.
I know it's a big question, and I'm shaking my head at myself right now.
No, that's fine.
But it's out there and it's happening.
Lessons I've learned from being in the band. There's probably like a ton of little musical things I learned, but it seems more philosophical the way you asked that. I learned a lot, about just sort of maintenance on your as a singer, like, I mean, this is just boring though. This is not a good answer, but just like,
no, this
when
is
you
a great answer.
Like 4 nights in a row and you have to kind of maintain your voice over those 4 nights. There's just things about that, I guess I learned, and just how hard it is to be on the road with a band, how tiring it is, how much of a mental, I definitely, it was what I always wanted to do was join a traveling band. I remember, from a high school age, just saying, I don't even care if it's like some big famous band. I just want to have the experience of being on the road, with a band where you travel around to different cities. And that just sounds just amazing to me. And so, and it was an incredible time, but it is really hard work too, so I think that was maybe one of the biggest lessons, just learning what it does to you, how it affects you physically and mentally. Because it was like, I just, maybe this is boring or a silly example, but I just remember at some point in time, I decided I was just losing my mind from boredom on the road, and I would every week when we hit the road, I'd bring 10 to 20 CDs from my CD collection to listen to on. This is back in the days before cell phones and iPhones and all that. I would just have like a CD player with headphones, and I'd bring like 15 CDs from my collection, which was pretty huge, that I just thought I might want to check out on the road and help the hours go by. And I wouldn't even put any of them in. I just didn't even want to listen. It was like, I'm just bored. I don't feel like listening to this. And I started reading books. I picked up a book and like, maybe this will help me escape where, this mental sort of prison you're in when you're in the van for 5-10 hours a day. And it helped. And so then I just started reading books, and I went through so many books. I'd read anything anybody gave me or anything I found. It didn't matter if it was fiction or nonfiction, and that helped. But it was kind of just like this amazing realization of how hard on your brain it is to just be in a car for that many hours every day, and then you get to the stage and just want to explode, which is kind of what we did, so
Absolutely. No,
yeah, I don't know.
I agree. Well, no. Like I loved that. That was a great answer, because that is a thing. And I'm still a touring musician, and you still travel a lot for music, and so there's still that thing. That those moments is like, what are you applying yourself to? Like, what are you doing with those moments? And for me, I actually have learned to love those boring moments, because it's just it gives me time to sort of, I don't know. They say you get a lot of good thinking done when you're bored. So for me, it's turned into this way of sort of just working out things and working out ideas, or I'm just in my laptop working on whatever. But I've learned to sort and here's the thing, is before cell phones, what you're talking. So you don't have Netflix on the road with you like I do. Now I have
Right.
Netflix in the van with me, so wherever I go. Then it was like you have your CD player and the other guys to talk to who you've talked to already or don't want to talk to anymore because they're too fucking close to you and you don't want to talk to these assholes right now.
Yeah.
And that's a very real thing about traveling with musicians is like, they're your best friends, they're your brothers, and like your brothers you're going to fight. And that's another hard part about being on the road is like, I got in a fight with fucking Eddie in Tucson. There's an Ed in the lead singer of my band is Eddie too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie, in Tucson we got in a fight. By the time we got to fucking Phoenix, it's turned into an all-out yelling match. So and then after the gig, it's like, oh, we're buddies again. It's all good. But you're right that learning how to deal with travel and because when people do look at musicians, they don't see hard work. Being a musician isn't synonymous with hard worker. You know what I mean? Not like a bricklayer or anything. So it's when I tell people like what I have to do and what I'm doing all the time, it's like they don't see it. But then when they see me at a gig or something and I'm lifting these big fucking monitors and I'm setting shit up and I'm doing all the things, they kind of get it. But there is like being on the road fucking depletes you. It's insane. Like how did you come down after those long runs? Because I know for me, it takes about 3 to 4 days for my brain to sort of lock back into, like civilian life. How did you sort of manage that after those long runs?
Well, I mean, first of all, we would sometimes have long runs that would be 2 or 3 weeks or even 4 weeks out west. But most of the time we were just gone for like Wednesday through Sunday.
Oh,
so I would have basically Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday to recover. But then we would just be right back out on the road. So it wouldn't be like, wouldn't be like fully recovering. You just kind of tread water until you have to go do it again.
He's just like, there was no recovery.
No, not really. I mean, and I think what helped me a lot was playing hockey. At one point in time I was playing hockey somehow 2 or 3 times a week. So I think Sunday nights I was on a team, and then Tuesdays and then Wednesdays, if I was in town, I would be playing hockey. So just keeping in shape, exercising, and just having that completely opposite world to dwell in, the hockey world, because it's quite a wonderful community of friends. Adult hockey is. So it'd be nice to like just completely depart. It's like going to a different country, like leaving the hookah world, and then there I am with my hockey buddies who don't care that I'm in a band and don't, you want to hear about it. They just talk about hockey and play hockey and drink beer after hockey. And, so that was really helpful to me to have that.
Yeah, totally, man. I can relate to that a lot. Whereas like I'll tend to hang out with my friends who aren't like musicians. Like I tend to hang out with a lot of musicians, obviously, but when like I'm in real downtown, if I am leaving my house at all, I'm gonna go hang out with a guy who has nothing to do with music, doesn't want to even talk about it, who doesn't even acknowledge music. You know what I mean? Like that's fine. I feel that in a big way, man, because sometimes you just gotta step out of that role and just completely go somewhere else with it, or else you get lost in that shit, man. It's fucking muck.
Yep.
So, I mean, you obviously had a great run, and you had, you shared the stage with so many amazing artists. I can't remember. You've played with Bob Weir before, right? You've actually been on stage with him. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got to play with like your hero. What was that like? What's Bob Weir like?
Yeah, that's the first time it was just almost too much. Like I just couldn't compute, it was just so weird. No pun intended. It was just so, it was too bizarre to really register. I mean, I was such a huge fan of the Grateful Dead, and I was starstruck just meeting him. And then you add to that the whole thing that I wouldn't even really be a singer if not for him. Just made it all like, it's just too much to compute. I remember, I don't know if you heard the whole story about how he borrowed my shorts or not.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah.
I did not hear the story about Bob Weir borrowing Ed's shorts. No.
Yeah. This just makes it even more bizarre and less possible to compute in my brain. But before the show, it was at Hookahville, in 99. It was 95 degrees or something. And I was, I had cruised backstage to try to meet him a couple times, and he was busy or not there. And then I went back a third time, and he was by himself in this air conditioned trailer drinking a Heineken. So I just walked in and introduced myself and thanked him for coming. And, I was like, I said something like, I never liked singing and I hated my voice until I got into the Dead, and your songs in particular helped me learn to enjoy singing and find my own voice, and eventually end up in a band that's big enough to invite you to play at our festival. So I can't thank you enough for being here. And he just looked at me and was like, well, thank you very much. And it was just kind of a cool thing to get to thank him for that.
Yeah.
And then he's looking out the window and he's like, it's getting awful hot out there. I need to see if I can scrounge me up some shorts. And because he's like wearing jeans or whatever. And I'm like, well, I have some extra shorts in my tent. I'd just gotten there. It was the beginning of a 4-day camping thing or whatever, so I had all these clean clothes, and I was like, I got an extra pair. And he goes, you wouldn't mind? And I go, no. And then he's like looking at my waist, and I was just so starstruck and freaked out that I was even talking to him, that I didn't get for a couple moments what he was doing. And I was like, oh, I'm about a 33. And he looked at me and he's like, perfect. So I took off in my golf cart and went and got a pair of shorts for him. And, he was wearing them during the Rat Dog set, and then he wore them again while he sat in with us. And there was this white, like bleach dot on one of the thighs of these shorts that I, were just some mistake I'd made doing laundry or whatever. And I remember just like looking over and seeing that dot and just going, what is Bob Weir doing there in my shirt? This makes no sense at all. None of this makes any sense. And I just, I think I drank a few more beers than I normally would, just to try to calm my spinning brain down. And I was backstage after the show talking to my parents, and just, kind of on cloud nine from a great show and a great experience. And I hear this voice say, "Hey, Ed." And it's Bob Weir saying, "Hey, Ed." And I'm like, I can't believe Bob Weir is beckoning me right now, And I look over and I'm like, "What's up, Bob?" Like this is just a normal evening for me, and he's like, it's nighttime, it's cooled down, so he's changed back to his jeans and he's walking over with my shorts, and he's like, "Thanks very much, man, appreciate it." I'm like, "Hey, no problem, anytime," And I'm just like, what weird world is this where Bob is returning clothes that I loaned him,
Your bleach stained shorts.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a non-bleach stained pair of shorts for Bobby, Ed?
Well, it was just one little dot, dude, and I figured that was the pair that I thought would match his shirt. So
yeah, I got you. It makes sense.
No,
it makes
I don't
sense.
know.
So, that's amazing, by the way. That's an amazing thing. I had Johnny Starcat on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me how one of I think his last chance to dance, he was like, Johnny's here, so let's play Johnny Be Good, or what is it, Johnny Be Good? I think they did. I think that was it. And so I love those stories. That's just casual encounters, and it's just, and for Bob, it's probably like he's probably heard that like 1,000 trillion times, right? And then,
Right.
but like for him to be, still gracious to return, like just to say thank you, and like that. I love that. I love it when when the people who like those legends are still like people, you know what I mean? And they're not these fucking horrible,
I got to tell you this one thing then, because
I'd love to.
I had this amazing experience with him later on down the line. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was a year or two later. Rat Dog was coming through the Midwest, and their management asked Hookah to open up for them at a string of shows, because they remembered us from the 2 Hookahvilles they played at and thought it would maybe help their numbers. Who knows? Anyway, they asked us to, and of course we said yes. They weren't paying much, but it was like, we got to do this. Yeah. And so we had played like a couple nights in a row or something, opening for them, and I just kind of would see him backstage and the other guys in the band. They were all friendly. And I would say hi, but I wouldn't like try to bother him or anything, because I'd already felt like I already had my yayas out and I'd met him and stuff, but I didn't want to bother him. But one night, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th night that we had played with them, opened up for them. We were in, I think it was Madison, Wisconsin, and some old theater we were playing in, and I was backstage, and our show was done, and Rat Dog had played, and they were done, and I was just drinking beers backstage. I had quite a bit at that point, because I was just having a good time, and I see Bob walking by with like his coat and a canvas bag full of some stuff, and I'm like, "Taking off for the night?" And he goes, like I'm just acting casual, like I just chat with Bob Weir, like it's no big deal. Yeah. You taking off tonight, Bob? And he goes, he's like, "Well, I was just gonna head out to the bus. Got a nice single malt Scotch out there. Do you like Scotch?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like I don't even know what he's talking. At the time, I'd never probably had Scotch. I just drank Heineken, and but I was like, "Sure, I'll." I'm not gonna say no to that casual invitation. So I ended up like walking out there behind him. Like I didn't even go back to get my coat or anything. I just was like, I don't want to miss this chance. So I go out on the tour bus with Bob, and it's just me and Bob. There's nobody else on the bus, and it's quiet. And it's the first time I've like gotten this kind of chance. I mean, I guess when I first met him in that air-conditioned trailer, it was like that, but I was too geeked out to even really speak then. He didn't know who I was. Now it was like he's inviting me onto his bus, and it's quiet. It's just us two, and he gets this Scotch out. I wish I could remember what it was, because now I drink Scotch, and I would love to know what I was drinking with him. But he poured some Scotch for us, and we sit down at the little table that's in a tour bus, and facing each other. And I'm just kind of like starstruck, and I don't know what to say, and I'm drunk and I don't want to be a jerk or stupid. And I'm desperately trying to think of what to talk about so he doesn't think I'm a tool. And it's really hard. I have no problem talking with people, but this was really freaking me out. And so I think, for a little bit, we talked about Sting, because I remember Sting opening up for the Dead on one tour, and I'm a big fan of Sting. And I kind of mentioned how, I love the fact that Sting uses odd time signatures, but makes the songs feel normal, kind of like you do with Estimated and stuff like that. And so that kind of helped. And, that sort of got us off the ground, but I still felt like he was just being kind of polite, and I wanted to connect somehow. And then it hit me, and I said this thing to him. I mentioned something, we were talking about songwriting because of that. And I said, yeah, it's sometimes kind of weird for me to be in this band Hookah, where I work so hard on my guitar skills and I write these songs that are sometimes barely in my ability to even play. And then you get out there and play them, and people just give all the credit to the lead guitarist because he's such an unbelievable guitar player. And Bob looked at me and he goes, I know just how you feel. and I swear after that, he was like looking at me like his little brother, like just like he was worried about me, and just like, and then it was fair game. Like we could talk about anything. Like the total mood changed, and he was like, I'd just be like, so did you get to hang out with Hendrix? Was the Pyramids, were they too hot to even enjoy the show? I was just saying anything at that point. And so that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. That is such a beautiful story of just like you're like desperately trying to connect with your fucking your idol, and when you hit the marker, man, you hit it and you got it, and man, that's beautiful, man. That's a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, it felt a little opportunistic, but at the same time, I thought it was a worthy point to point out that I had my Sweeney issues and he had his Garcia issues to deal with. So,
and both is like reasonable. Those are reasonable things that are sort of to gripe about is like, fuck, dude. It's like, obviously he's amazing. I get it. They're great. But come on. what
yeah,
about this?
It's not really even a gripe. You can't even gripe about it.
No, you
All
can't.
You can do is be grateful, to have
absolutely
that going on. But at the same time, it's just like you get drowned a little bit, or eclipsed, I guess is a better word. My good friend Harold would always call me the other guitarist in Acoustik Hookah, which cracked me up.
Other guitarist.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's coming from a friend and not from the audience. Hey, other guitarists, play this.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're going on and on here, but so Hookah was this amazing experience, and I'm just curious, what was the decision to step away?
Yeah, I don't want to really dwell on that, especially because
Sure.
we've been going on for a while. But to be brief about it, I just needed to move on. I'd grown unhappy. I wasn't feeling good about things in general. I think you could even use that old cliche, creative differences, because I know there were some issues where some guys in the band didn't like some of my latest songs, and I know that I didn't like some of the ones that Dave was coming out with. But like that was just part of being a band with two songwriters. I just you get used to it, and you find things you like about them over time or whatever. But I guess it had come to a head. It had gotten like a burr in the saddle. It had just gotten worse and worse, to a point where there was also a question of the financial aspect of it. We had fallen on some hard times. I don't know if anyone realizes it, but I hadn't gotten a steady paycheck in like a year and a half or two. And we used to make a decent amount of money after Hookahvilles, but then that all stopped too because of debts we owed. And you get to the point where I'm on stage in front of hundreds or thousands of people, knowing that I'm not feeling good about things and that I'm not even going to get paid. And I just was like, what am I doing here? And so just had to consider moving on. And then there was a couple sort of last straw experiences that are not even that important to share, that just, was like, well, I think it's time to go,
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally, man. It's just sometimes that's just how it goes, man. You just like this. Well, this is the end of this.
Yeah.
No, another thing before, in the murky waters here, one thing that I did notice, I remember the announcement of you leaving, and we can get out of this subject as soon as I ask you this question, and you can deny answering it totally. That's fine, but what I know is me and my friends, and at this time when you left the band, I was already out in California living, so like we were sort of following the band from afar now, and what we noticed was as soon as you left the band was that the songs we could no longer get your songs on iTunes digitally, and if you didn't have the CDs, then well, too bad for you. And it's kind of still in that realm. Like I found a couple songs on YouTube. Can you speak on that, or do you want to speak on
Sure.
it?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to answer because the answer is I have no idea why that happened.
Oh.
That was certainly not my doing.
Well,
I mean,
and I do want to say also that, and not to interrupt you, which I just did, is that at least in my circles, we were just like, how could Ed do this to us? So
there's no reason why I would do that. Okay. Why would I do that?
Well,
I absolutely did not do that. I've heard people say stuff like people that I knew pretty well. Are you still there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Yeah. My phone just went black. People that I thought knew me pretty well and I considered friends were like, I can't believe you would, take legal action. I never took any legal action. I never had a lawyer dealing with this stuff. I didn't do any of that. My songs disappeared, and that was really, I thought, quite a slight and a shitty thing. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't mind saying that. I'm just being honest, and I think anybody in my position would say that. So I don't think anyone can fault me. But those guys, I'm sure, had their gripes with me and the way I left the band, and that's fine. And maybe that was a part of their reaction to it. The good news is we're all getting along really well now. Like, consider Dave a good friend again, and I love playing with him and Cliff. And every time I'm back in Columbus, I hang out with Sweeney, go to his house and drink beer till 5 a.m. and listen to Stuff Too Loud on his TV. And so I love where we are now. I mean, that was back in 2005. Some shit happened, and I don't know why it happened. And I actually have talked to Dave recently about, I would say maybe a couple months ago. I don't know how it came up, but he said something about this, and he said, at the time, he said something like, we didn't know where you were and we needed to get you to sign something so we could get your songs on the digital platform. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what happened. But, regardless, he brought it up and said, we need to get this fixed and we need to talk to this person and we'll get your songs back up there. And so,
oh my God, that'd be amazing. That'd be so awesome if that happened because, I mean, well, for obvious reasons, Ed, but
yeah.
But that's beautiful, man. No, and like the 2.0 thing, I love it so much. I will say, and this is coming from a fan thing, that that first 2.0 show for 50, I was, and please don't take this the wrong way. It's just me and being overly honest. I was like, why Enter Sandman? You guys could have went anywhere, but you guys went Enter Sandman. That's so 2005, bro.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No. And please, I know that it's not all your decision, and I'm not even trying to complain that much because you guys kill it. And after years of you guys being, apart and have that group back together, and you guys play as well as you did, that says a lot. So
when you're a fan of a band who plays a different set every night and does surprise encores and stuff like that, there's nothing wrong with criticizing the choice of so you have no reason to apologize for that comment.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or step on toe. We're not here to. I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to tell your story. So I don't want to be all fucking.
If anybody was made an enemy for that simple comment, then they're an idiot. No, a fair comment that I agree with. As a fan, I would have also said exactly what you just said. And as one of the people in 2.0, to be honest, I was not keen on that choice myself.
Right on. Well, thank you well, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
So now this is, I mean, now you're on your own and you're doing your own thing, and you have this beautiful new album out that came out. It came out around the Hookahville 52, right, in September.
Yeah, it was August. August is when it came out. Yeah, thanks, man.
Oh no, it's so beautiful, man, and I loved the idea. What gave you the idea to do this sort of retrospect of your songs and then to strip them down? What was the what drove you?
Well, I have a lot of old songs that people still request when I come to Ohio to play shows, and a lot of times I get messages, emails, and whatnot saying, "Where can I find this on CD and stuff?" And there's just no good recording of them. So, part of it was like I found that there's a bunch of old songs of mine that people still like to hear and want good recordings of. I was like, well, maybe I should record them. So then I kind of started making a list of songs of mine that have not been recorded well, that people still seem to want to hear. And I was surprised. I had to actually hone it down. It was, I had like 20 songs or something, and I had to pick from it. And then I didn't want to drive myself completely crazy playing songs that are super old. I mean, it's hard to get pumped up to go in the studio and work that hard on songs that you wrote when you were, 19, if you're 50 years. So, it's just more fun to do new stuff, but I tried to throw in a couple things that were, there's one song that was brand new. And partly because of that, it's one of my favorites on the album. Every, yeah.
Dude, there's seriously a note made, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was the song that I was going to intentionally bring up, because I loved that you're 50 and 50-year-old Ed's voice was, when I heard that song, it was like a new way of hearing you sing. Like, I've never heard that come from you personally. I mean, you might have sang like that for a long time and for years now, but and like your voice aged well, unlike Bob Dylan's, who I didn't really like his voice anyways, but God, it just went south. But like, like sometimes these singers, after a few years, it's just too much smoking and drinking, it just goes to shit. But I was like, wow, to the point where I didn't even think it was you. And I had to like listen. And then as soon as you started like really opening up and, there he is. But please go on with what I so rudely interrupted you to just.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Well, and thank you for the compliment. I think maybe one thing that's different about that song is I sing in a pretty low register in the beginning of it. And so that, so that might just sound different. I'm not often down there for that long. I might hit low notes in passing, but to hold out whole phrases down there maybe is different about that song. But so I just collected these. I mean, back to the approach of the album, I just wanted to put a bunch of old stuff on there and make a nice recording. And I like the idea of doing a more stripped down approach. My first album, Alexander 3 and Other Stories, was very involved and took a year and a half of piecing together musicians and parts and layering. And I loved it. I mean, I loved that process. I could do that every day. But I just wanted to try something more stripped down and organic. And there was also a logistic thing to it. I don't live in Denver anymore, so the studio I wanted to use in Colorado Springs was, I knew I was going to have to go bang it out in a short period of time. So I flew out there in February of this year, I think, or March or something. And over the course of 5 days, did all the singing and acoustic guitar and bass parts myself in a short period of time. So that's, that helped. That went along with the stripped down nature of the thing. But yeah, that's kind of the idea I had for for that album.
Well, it was a great idea. Can we? Is it all right if we play Every? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
we're gonna listen to Every, and we'll be right back.
Every wish, every dream I've ever had since I was 17. All those fireworks and shooting stars just lit the path for me to where you are. Everything happens, I suppose I agree. There aren't always reasons though, I just don't believe. But I love the randomness, the fateless route, infinite destinies, yet I still found you. I still found you. Pick a day, 10 years before we'd even met. Snapshots from paths that hadn't thought to cross just yet. You there in the morning, making breakfast for your kids. Me 2 time zones over, still dreaming in my bed. Maybe I was happy then, and you were getting by. Maybe we let moments pass, so one day our moment arrives. Once went riding bareback, I don't know what got in my head. Almost got knocked out when the horse ran in the shed. Once climbed the fire escape to the roof of a hotel. Saw the sunrise over Sunset Strip, seemed I'd chosen well. Once I helped a crazy man down a mountain in the dark. Took him to the voting booth, and we both made our mark. It all seems unrelated when I'm looking back today. Wasn't every step I took leading me to you someday? To you someday. Pick a day, 20 years before we'd even met. Snapshots from paths that hadn't thought to cross just yet. Far and fast away you rode, as if your horse had wings. Foolishly but fearlessly I searched for words to sing. Maybe you were happy then, I was getting by. Maybe all those moments passed, so one day, pick a day 30 years before we had even met. Snapshots from paths that hadn't thought to cross just yet. You there with your surfboard, laughing on the beach. Me climbing some maple until the world was out of reach. Maybe we were happy then, off in our separate lives. Maybe all those moments passed, so that one day our moment arrived. I've ever had since I was 17. All those fireworks and shooting stars just lit the path for me to where you are.
And we're back. So you guys got the that was great, right?
That was amazing.
So you guys could kind of hear what I was talking about with the Ed's voice being that which you explained is a lower register that you're singing in, and it just was like I was just like, who is this? Who is this singing to me right now? Did he have a guest singer? And obviously not, but yeah, it was great, man. It was really cool to hear you sort of expand on your voice. How do you feel about your voice as you've grown with it? How do you feel about it? How has it changed? And do you like what your voice is becoming?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I think that I'm, in the right conditions. I've managed to get a handle on that vibrato that was sort of out of my control. We talked about that a little earlier. And I have hearing aids now. I don't use them often on stage, certainly not with a full band, but the hearing aids help me to, hear the notes better, frankly, and that helps me control the vibrato and know, when to use it, and instead of having it just psychologically come out as a crutch so I can hear where I'm singing. But yeah, I feel good about it. I still feel like when I'm up on I like to go to open stages around here in Vermont. There's just some great, like, some 200, 300-year-old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere that has a restaurant and a pub in it where there'll be an open stage, and open mic. And it's fun to go there and just try out new songs or try out songs I don't normally play. And watch people's reaction. And I still feel like when I open my mouth, the sound that comes out makes me feel good. I feel strongly about it. I feel like I'm doing that thing we talked about earlier where I can jump into a role and really feel something. So, and when I hear myself on my last two albums, I'm happy with my voice.
Well, me too. I mean, let's see, the Life in Their Bones is the latest album, and where can people pick that up?
Well, on my there's a link at my Facebook, Ed McGee Music on Facebook. There's a link there to my online store, which is called Alexander's Trading Post. You could do a search for Alexander's Trading Post too, I think, and you'll find it online. It's through Square, one of those online stores, but it's called Alexander's Trading Post. And otherwise Ed McGee Music has a link to where to buy it. And then it's also at cdbaby.com. You can get the digital version there, cdbaby.com.
I was curious. I was curious that you didn't put any of the albums out on the Spotify's and stuff like that. Was there a reason behind that, or is it just you just didn't get there yet?
I plan to, actually.
Okay, cool.
I will be. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Alexander III was right after the band. How long after the band did you record that? After Hookah, I'm saying. I know you had like a whole, because you had One Under, like, too.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about One Under. Ooh.
Right, yeah, we skipped the One Under chapter.
We just skipped right over that shit.
We'll have to do like another segment.
Oh, well, I'm totally down. I know we're on 2 hours here, and that's usually my cutoff point, but you're willing to talk to me, so I'm sort of milking it. But I will wrap up because I'm sure you have plenty to do in your life. So, so all those albums are available right now, and I'll make sure I put the link in the show notes so you could just go and click right on there and buy it. I suggest you do it. Ed also it looks like there's a holiday special going on where you got $8 t-shirts and the shipping is free. So do go there and do buy stuff for Christmas for your loved ones. I think this is going to be out before Christmas. No, it's not. Okay, anyways, go buy stuff. But I had a couple more questions for you. Just kind of quick stuff. What are some of the ways you activate your creative process? when you're trying to
activate my creative process.
Yeah, isn't that weird? or do you even look at it like that, or do you just, is that not how you create? Is it just like you're just walking down the street and like, oh shit, I got this idea, I gotta go do it, or do you actually sit down and work and like, okay, I'm gonna write a song right now?
I like to create a little nest with all my art supplies and my cat and a cup of tea.
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. That's my wife's answer to that question.
I got you.
She's right there, so I just was. She had to answer that same question in one of her interviews, and so I was trying to copy it. I eat an avocado and drink some tea and make a nest.
Well, I mean, but to speak on the avocado thing, healthy fats and the omega-3s and 6s and that, it actually will help with the creative process.
I love avocados.
Yeah, avocados are amazing. They're a superfood, which I think they just call it superfood to sell them, but you know, whatever. It's super.
The guacamole ball.
The guacamole ball.
I saw this great thing that was like, damn, another wooden ball for a toy. I wish that whoever's making these avocados would put a different toy surprise in it.
Like they're a Cracker Jack or something.
Another wooden ball.
God damn it. I got like 50 of these things already.
No, so creative process. First of all, I love playing after the world has gone to sleep. When it's dark and like everyone is just, it's almost like, I almost feel like sometimes there's more brain waves in the air because everyone's asleep. Then there's more for me to tap into if the rest of the world is unconscious, and I can just drink beer and work on something at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. So I like to just have that quiet and the late night, the kind of like romantic spookiness of late night when it's just dark and you don't know what's outside the window. And I like that space. And so in our house, I go down to the basement room because it's pretty well sealed off sound wise. And I can sing loud and I can play guitar pretty loud and no one's going to wake up. And and then as far as just like the actual creativity of it, I feel like I'm constantly just like getting little sparks, getting little things jump out at me, and I jot them. I have like a long list of notes in the notes part of my iPhone, just some concept or a phrase. Like I love the way phrases just sound sometimes. That's a cool sounding phrase. So I'll just like write it down and then, you know, try to manipulate it or figure out what character is saying it and how does it belong in a story or a song or, you know. And so that's kind of like a daily thing. And so when I do get the chance to go down at 3 a.m. with my guitar, then I can look through those notes and start developing ideas. And, you know, and other times it's almost like a therapeutic thing. Like I'll have something on my mind that I need to work out. Like I had a friend that I was really worried about recently. And I wrote a song about it that is my newest song and I love it. And I love playing it. It makes me feel better about things. So, you know, sometimes it's like a reaction to that. So
that's awesome, man. So like you said that you kind of you'll work daily on writing, or it's a daily thing for you. It's a daily ritual for you.
Yeah, like I want to say work because it's kind of like I might just be sitting at a stop sign and I saw or a phrase came into my mind or the, you know what I mean? Like I'll just see something and it'll occur to me to just jot it down. And I wish I have examples. I should just look at my phone right now because I'm holding it. But let's see if I can find any examples for you.
Sure, that'd be great.
Well, I got one song I'm working on right now that's almost done called, well, it's going to either be called Always and Everywhere or Here and no, what is it going to be called? Now and Everywhere or Always and Everywhere. And I was kind of just like, I was thinking about the snarky phrase where people say there's a time and a place for that. Like when you're getting scolded for something. And I hate that phrase. There's a time and a place for that. Sounds so condescending and whatever. And so it made me think, what would be a good response to there's a time and a place for that? I was like, yeah, it's now and everywhere. And
Nice.
so then I started developing this song about someone who's basically responding that way. And I love it. It's fun, so like that, I might have been just sitting at a red light or driving when I was thinking that. And as soon as I got a chance to stop, I write down in my notes section of my phone, now and everywhere. And then later on, I put it together with the music and make a story out of it or whatever. So, that's my example, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's just like one or two of the many ways that things kind of occur to you. But I appreciate you sharing that. What this is coming from a friend. This question's coming from one of my friends who's actually the friend who introduced me to hookah. He said, "Hookah 2.0 tour. When's it happening?"
Well, people ask me sometimes if I would ever rejoin the band or go on a tour or whatever. And I don't think rejoining the band is necessarily possible for me. I don't know if I could, I'm so incredibly grateful to be friends with those guys again and to be able to sit in with them from time to time and, hang out with them and laugh and with the times we get together at Hookahville, I think are supreme. And I think we still manage to kick ass despite the fact that we're not touring. Like, we used to have it so dialed in because we were just playing 4 nights a week. But even without that, I think we did a pretty damn good job in these last few reunion type things. But yeah, I don't know if it would be smart to do anything more than that. I could imagine, I could fathom and I could stomach the idea of trying to find the right verb. I think I could handle the idea of going on a little tour with them, if we did a few shows or something, string of 6 shows or something like that, just as a tour, like just to say this is doing a run with Ed singing or whatever. I could handle stuff like that.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, to answer your friend's question, that's up to those guys, I'm always willing to come sit in with them or open up for them or go out to dinner or drink beer with them, whatever, I feel like, we're older now, we're friends now again. And it's more just about like what'll be fun and, maybe pay the electric bill this month.
Yeah, man. No, that's great. I like the idea of friends with like enjoying your time that you spend with them, but it's a good amount of time before you see them again. I like
helps
that.
The friendship,
yeah, of
sure.
course, yeah, for sure, man. Because I had a similar thing. I mean, it wasn't a band and it wasn't on a scale like you guys. It had nothing to do with band, but I had a friend that had a falling out for years, and ever since I moved back to Toledo from San Diego, it's been it's been really nice to have him because he's like the oldest friend I have, but we can very easily slip back into the bad side of the relationship. So we see each other like 3 or 4 times a year, and then it's but we're happy to see each other. You know what I mean? So like,
right.
I think those are great. Those are great relationships, and especially if you're trying to. Like you said, you're like, we're friends again. So why would I want to like start stirring that up? Because at the end of the day, they are your brothers, and you went to war with these guys, and it's fuck, dude. They're always gonna be your people. It's just sometimes you don't agree with them.
I don't even know if it's all that, to be honest.
Sure.
I don't know if it's as bad as you're making it out.
Oh, no.
I think it's like...
It is for me, but for you, it's probably something completely different.
No, it's more just like, I'm so grateful for what I have right now. The situation. I'm so happy in this situation. And I'm a little afraid to mess with it, outside of like doing these McStarcat shows, which are a total blast, and the occasional sitting in with hookah, it would make me nervous a little bit. And I don't even know why. Like, I'm not saying that I think we would argue or anything. It wasn't even that bad to begin with. It was just, I had my own issues back then, and I I was becoming unhappy for, it's not like it was all their fault. I had a role in it, but it's not that. It's not like I'm afraid of that stuff. It's more just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of a thing. Like, everything's so great right now. I told Dave once last year after a McStarcat show, we were just hanging out after a run of 3 McStarcat shows. I said, I don't need anything more than this. I'm not looking to weasel back in anything. And I just want you to know I'm having so much fun doing these shows with you, and the occasional hookah show is great. I don't need anything. That's making me happy. And then I go do my own thing. I go play hockey. I live in Vermont, hang out with my wife, whatever. I don't need anything more than this. So, like, if they asked me to do a run for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I could probably handle that. But if they were like, anything more than that, it would cause some serious pause, because that would make me worried that what we have is, it's maybe a delicate thing, and maybe we should just leave it where it is. I don't know.
And plus, I mean, the band is the band now, and they're great. So it's like I'm agreeing with you in that sense. Is like, I would love to see a tour of you guys, because the great thing about tours is, like, you start in one place, and by the time, what I'm saying, in your playing as a band, you start one place, and by the end of it, you're just so tight, and you just know, like, you could feel each other's heartbeats. And so it would be so cool to see you guys, like, worked out to that point again, and that's what I would want to see. I mean, I think 2.0 forever band, I don't know, like, I think you guys had a great run, and of course, I mean, everybody would love to see that. But I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, and I kind of agree with that. I'd rather have you guys all fucking cool and have these great special moments than nothing at all, or I don't know. That's coming from a fan side today. I just wanted to do one more thing, because I'm a glutton for punishment, and then we'll end this. We have met before a long time ago in 2003. I've been debating this whole time whether or not I'm going to tell you this, because it's embarrassing. I was drunk as shit. It was at an after party. You guys played Howard's. I think that's right. You guys played Howard's, and it was a bad
Bowling
night.
Green?
I'm sorry?
Bowling Green?
Yes, sir. Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah.
So there we go. So we were in Bowling Green, Ohio. There was an after party. You happened to be there, and I was having a bad night. I was drunk, and for whatever reason, you were the guy I was going after that night. And so it started off really nice, and we were talking. And by the way, I just seen my girlfriend make out with another fucking dude. So I was. But I don't expect you to remember this at all. So, you've met so many people. How could you ever remember something so stupid and insignificant as this? But it started off nice, and I remember I asked you. I was like, during the show, it didn't look like you were having fun up there. Is this not fun for you anymore? And you kind of took pause, and you're just sort of like thinking about it, and you're like, well, I'm paraphrasing, because this was like, a long time ago, and I was kind of drunk at the time. So, and whatever else. But you said something like, fun's not really the word for it, because it's not always fun. It's very gratifying to have this song and then give it to a group of musicians who are amazing, and then turn it into something else. That's sort of what I got from it. And then I just started being mean. I don't even remember what I said, but it quickly changed, and you're like, what is your problem, man? And it got to a point where people around you were like, why are you fucking with Ed, man? What's your problem, man? What's fucking go, and so your fandom rose up out of nowhere. It was like, what is your deal, dude? and I was quickly ushered out of the party because I was being rude to the guest of honor. So that was one thing. Also, I used to sneak in the Hookahville sometimes. Okay. So there you go. That's it.
Well, thanks for fessing up. I've been wondering for years who that was, and now I finally know. And I think I know where you live. No,
yes, you do.
I don't have any memory of that.
Good.
But I've had way worse things happen to me than that. So if that's the the weight of the stone you carry, that's not so bad, dude.
By the way,
really
this has been this story has been like a story I tell people when I want to explain to them how fucking big of an asshole I was when I was drunk. So I used to get so drunk I would go after like one of my favorite band's lead singers. So that's how big of an asshole I was when I was drinking.
I think that maybe it was my fault because I think I answered wrong. I think the answer to your question in the first place, and it's actually a way I answer. I say this a lot now. I maybe wasn't aware of it back then, but I have a terrible case of resting bitch face. It's unbelievable. It's true, and I see pictures of myself on stage all the time where it looks like I just stepped on a tack, or I'm like mad at somebody, and I'm like I've seen pictures from shows that I knew that I was just ecstatic and elated the entire night, and it looks like I am so pissed off, and I'm like, what is wrong with my face? And then then I just like pose for pictures with Lee sometimes, my wife, and it's like I thought I was smiling, and I look like I'm smelling something bad, and I'm like, I think my face is broken, dude, and I think it's been that way for a long time. So maybe when you said that, it was because I just was like having typical resting bitch face, and that should have been my answer.
RBF, okay, right up.
Yeah, pretty sure that's what I mean. I don't know how anybody can tell if I'm in a good mood, because like when I see pictures of myself, it looks like I'm pissed constantly. And I just want to like take this opportunity to assure everyone I'm really happy most of the time and having a great time. I don't know why my face looks like the way it does.
You can't help it. You can't help it. And well, Ed, this has been a real honor for me. I truly appreciate you taking this time to talk with me, and you sent me those CDs. You've just been so gracious, and I genuinely appreciate it, and I am a big fan, and I can't wait to hear what you're doing next, and I'm totally enjoying what you have going now. So it's been great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the new album and stuff. And
yes, which is available now. You can go to Ed McGee Music on Facebook and find the link there. And then what was the other one? It was Alexander's Trading Post?
Yeah, Alexander's Trading Post. Google Square that. Online store.
And you can find it there right now, right this second, if you want to go and do that. Now, I'll leave the links in the show notes so you guys can find it easily. Ed McGee, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to whoever it was that kicked you out of the backstage that night. I appreciate them, too.
Yeah, right? Like, get this fucking asshole out of here. Jeez Louise. No, it was like, I told my friend I was talking to you, and so he gave me that question, and he was like, are you going to bring up how you were like about to get beat up by Ed? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And then it happened. So I'm a glutton for punishment. I've done this a couple times to people, and sometimes it makes people uncomfortable. So I'm glad that you just sort of laughed it off and didn't be like, oh, great, weirdo. Anyways, thanks a lot, Ed. You have a great rest of your day, man.
I'm Alexander Keane. You won't find a better doctor. I might be new to the scene, but I know I got the key to unlock her. The statuette smiled. He'd been waiting so long now. He knew his hopes were too wild. We ought to hear the child sing a song now. The fading sunlight slipped through branches of the oaks. The shadows crossed his marble face like crazy broken spokes. And somewhere halfway down the path, a sudden wicked chill. 5 gravestones cast 5 shadows like dark fingers on the hill. So Alexander knew the stories were true. Straight up to My methods are strange, but we gotta break the chains from what's caught her. The statue man ran, and there was suddenly thunder. The ritual began. Alexander had a plan of such wonder. And up above the creaking eaves, rain pounded on the slate. Thunderclaps from an audience of gods too long and wait. Oh, Avix, oh, Eldo, oh, cried the statue. Oh, Obsidia, oh, Tonk, oh, today she might remember you. And Alexander knew there's one more thing to do. On this enchanted night, what else can you expect? Their hearts they beat in time, the souls they would connect. The man and the divine, he come to resurrect. So sacred and born, no curse could still infect. The storm that shook the walls, dark magic from the skies. But Alex searched for light in her beautiful empty eyes and said, please rise, sing the world alive. Please rise, lift your voice up to the skies. Yeah, please rise, sing the world alive. Yeah, please rise, sing the world alive. Please, please, please rise. Please, please, please Morning came and the storm was gone. But an empty bed the sunlight fell upon, while Alexander and the statue slept. Down the hall the goddess crept. Slowly climbed the spiral stair to the eastern facing turret there. But Yuma threw the curtains wide to watch the sunrise over the mountainside. And with eyes alive and beaming, saw the mist of morning rising, saw the river ripple sparkling, saw the sun in defiance shining on the gravestones of her siblings, saw the sun shine out on everything, felt the song inside returning out and began to sing. Sisters and brothers, rise up now and breathe. I was lost so long in darkness, but Alexander set me free. You could guess the rest by now. All but maybe one thing. The wedding was in summer, the baby came in spring. Little Alexander said humor to the child, named after your father, so brave and so wild. Alexander smiled and held the boy up near his chest and said, it was my father who wore this name the best. So noble in his actions, so powerful in word. So this beloved humor is Alexander the Third.
And that was Alexander 3 from Ed's album Alexander 3 and Other Stories, which can be found on Alexander's Trading Post. Just go to facebook.com/Ed McGee Music and click on the link in there that takes you right to Alexander's Trading Post, or you can just follow the link in the show notes and go get some stuff from Ed McGee. Thank you so much, Ed. I super duper appreciate you coming on. It was a complete honor for me to talk and listen to somebody who's been through, so much with music. The level that he got to just by singing is just incredible. I loved everything about this conversation. There was moments where I'm just sitting there like nerding out completely, just sitting there and just living in that moment as he's just saying these incredible things. Because Ekoostik Hookah has this lore built around them, like they, and if you don't know who Ekoostik Hookah is, it's okay, because Ekoostik Hookah is still a prominent band in the region here in the Ohio Midwest region, in the hippie scene or in the jam scene. So, it was just incredible to hear, these different stories and different untied loose ends tied for me personally as a fan. So as a fan, I was just sitting there and it was like reveal after reveal after reveal. That's how I felt about it personally. I don't know how you felt about it. I mean, you might never even heard of Ed, but that's what's great about this podcast is that we talk to people that you might never, ever even heard of, but they're insanely awesome. So, and Ed's just on that next level. Like he's just like his songwriting is top notch. I know I'm dick riding right now. I'm dick riding real hard right now, but I just, it was a very exciting moment for me, and to be able to do this, to have this podcast, to be able to reach out to people that I used to just listen to constantly and be obsessed with on a local level here, like to me is huge. I do want to go after Gil Manterra's Party Dream. I'm telling you right now, I want to talk to those guys. I know you never heard of those guys either, but they're fucking incredible. And I want to talk to them. I'm like, I've had like these obsessive moments where I think about it and I play out this weird story of me like doing almost like an audio documentary of like, where are they now? That type of thing. But that's not what this show is. And I don't know how far I would actually pursue that. I'm busy. Things happen I can't keep up with all the ideas that I have because I just have so many great ideas. Which I don't have great ideas all the time. Anyways, thank you very much, Ed. I super duper appreciate it again. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Write the show at wespeakenglishgood@gmail.com. Let me know. Did you enjoy this episode? For me personally, even though we had all these technical issues, which really, oh my God, just so embarrassing. But for me, it was just a very Ed was very open with what he's very open with what he wanted to talk about, and he was very open with what he would agree to talk about, and we didn't agree to anything really before the podcast, but there's this agreement that's made during a conversation where they tell you, it's like, well, I'm not going into this too deep. Let's let you know, just back up a little bit. Sometimes I try to push in those moments, but I don't feel like pushing is necessarily always what you have to do, because I don't know, like if you just let people talk, they'll give you what you want. And it's not like I wanted Ed to tell me, he's like, oh, I fucking hated those bastards and I quit hookah because I'm better than, like there was no expectations like that, but it was just nice to hear it from him, because you hear all these rumors, and yes, I've heard a lot of rumors. And it's just nice to clarify it with the source. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about with lore that surrounds the band and surrounds the members. And, it's the type of band where everybody just sort of knows everybody's name in the band. It's not like 9 Inch Nails where you go see them live and there's Trent Reznor and then that guy and then whoever he hired, that guy. You know what I mean? Like the band as a whole was something, and then individually each member carried something as well, and then the stories that surround that orbit those that tight-knit little clan of human beings. So it's just great to have those loose ends tied up for myself. Give me a peace of mind. Go to ReinaMystique.com, ReinaMystique.com, and check out our latest album, 1018. We had a blast recording it onto tape on vintage gear. It's just, you can hear it. I love the audio production of this, as well as the musical content, of course. But it was a very special thing for us, and we know you're going to love it. So, ReinaMystique.com. While you're on the website, go to the Experience tab and find out where me and my lovely wife are performing in the Toledo area. You can follow us on Instagram at wespeakenglishgood, at wespeakenglishgood. That's it. Follow us at wespeakenglishgood on Instagram or Facebook. Again, I'm going to get back on the tutorial things. I'm going to actually try some different things and see what works. I know that you guys like the licks of the day, but I got some other ideas I kind of want to try out. So what else we got? Oh, yeah. You can leave a review on iTunes for We Speak English Good. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star if you think we're worth it, or a 1 if you think that we're worth a 1. Whatever. It's nice just that you went out of your way to do it. They make it so fucking difficult on iTunes. You gotta sign it. I tried to go rate my buddy's podcast, and it's such a pain in the ass that I didn't even do it. I just never did it. I was like, okay, well, I'm just not gonna. It's too hard. So I appreciate it. The people who do go and actually rate the podcast. It is very, very nice, and it's very, very helpful. It's way easier to leave a comment or rate it on SoundCloud or Spotify. They made it way easier. Write the show at wespeakenglishgood@gmail.com. What'd you guys think of this episode? I'm like really curious, because I felt like it was great. But sometimes when I feel like things, like an episode is great, it don't always turn out to be great. So let me know what you think about that. Also, that's it. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you guys are enjoying the food, the presents, and the presence of the people around you. Leave politics at the door. Don't bring up the impeachment thing, with old Uncle, Roscoe. I don't know where Roscoe. I was just trying to think of some redneck Trump supporter name, but Roscoe is what came up. All right, that's it. My computer is about to die, so fuck this. We're done. Merry fucking Christmas, everybody. Be good to your fellow human beings. HJ's for everybody. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Fresh.